Give up the position of city lord. When Mu Chen's somewhat cold voice echoed across the city, the noise in the area abruptly ceased. Countless pairs of eyes were fixated on the young man dressed in black, his figure tall and slender. The air in the entire world seemed to freeze at that moment. No one had expected that the new leader from Nine Nether Palace would be so decisive. He had just shown up, barely had his feet touch the ground, and yet he was already speaking these words. Was he not afraid of causing backlash and tearing his face off with them? After all, there were more than 50 city lords here. Many people exchanged glances, clearly stunned by the unusual approach taken by this new leader of Nine Nether Palace. As the countless people were shaken by Mu Chen's voice, all the city lords, including Luo Mang, stood there with shocked expressions on their faces. They had set up this grand display to intimidate the newcomer from Nine Nether Palace. Luo Mang had believed that facing such an imposing formation would certainly put pressure on a young man with only the strength of a first-grade supreme. As long as the latter was shaken by their momentum, they would take control in the following negotiations. Luo Mang had anticipated this, so he was well prepared. Yet, in that moment, he was caught off guard, because he realized that the formation he had arranged seemed to be completely disregarded by the new leader of Nine Nether Palace. And after his confusion, a surge of fury rose within him. Luo Mang's face darkened almost instantly, as he stared at Mu Chen with a cold laugh, saying, "This new leader really has some nerve. You think you can dismiss our positions as city lords with just a word? Who do you think you are?" Other city lords also had traces of anger on their faces, though most were looking at each other in uncertainty. Mu Chen's aura was far too overwhelming. He didn't seem like someone who came to negotiate with them. His tone had no hint of discussion at all. In the sky, Mu Chen's expression remained calm, but his black eyes were filled with coldness. He could clearly see through Luo Mang's intentions, and he knew the character of the person in front of him. When dealing with such people, the only way was to not give in at all, to act without any hesitation. The moment you showed weakness, they would take a step further. If you took one step back, they would advance by a mile. The only solution was to say nothing and kick them in the face, leaving them no room to retreat. He speaks for Nine Nether Palace. Behind Mu Chen, Tang Bing's beautiful eyes were cold as she looked at the city lords, her voice as chill as the winter wind. "If you disagree, go ahead and find the 3 sovereigns to oppose us." Luo Mang's face changed slightly, his eyes growing darker. Mu Chen's cold gaze swept across the city lords, and he said softly, "If there are city lords loyal to Nine Nether Palace, we will naturally keep them. But if anyone thinks they can leverage this situation to blackmail us, I'll make it clear, these cities belong to Nine Nether Palace. If anyone doesn't like that, Nine Nether Palace will strip them of their positions. I'm sure there will be many who would be interested in becoming city lords." Many of the city lords couldn't help but twitch at the corners of their eyes. Was this new leader from Nine Nether Palace insane? Dismissing so many city lords at once. Did Nine Nether Palace not fear that these cities would descend into chaos? However, if Nine Nether Palace truly adopted a break-the-jar and sink-it approach and dismissed them all, the consequences would be enormous. As Mu Chen said, many were eyeing the positions of the city lords. The great Luo Heaven domain was vast, with powerful individuals everywhere. Finding replacements for them wouldn't be impossible. Some city lords couldn't help but feel uneasy, wondering if they had pushed Nine Nether Palace too far, driving them to such an extreme and potentially destructive confrontation. After all, Nine Nether Palace had a powerful backing. Even if they suffered significant losses, they could still survive. But if the city lords lost their positions, they would lose all their background and resources. Without the support of the great Luo Heaven Domain's resources, their cultivation paths would become much harder. Many of the city lords' expressions shifted, and for a moment, they were shaken by Mu Chen's reckless disregard for the consequences. The anger on their faces turned into hesitation. Seeing this, Luo Mang's eyes grew even colder. It seemed that he had underestimated the new leader of Nine Nether Palace. This young brat, though not old, was incredibly decisive. His ruthless break-it-and-let-it-go humph. Nonsense. These cities now fall under the jurisdiction of Bloodhawk Hall. The appointment of the city lord should be controlled by Bloodhawk Hall. Since when did it become your place to give orders? Luo Mang's voice was sharp. If he didn't speak out at this moment, these city lords might start having second thoughts. Everyone, don't be intimidated by this. Lord Blood Eagle is watching us. Upon hearing the name Blood Eagle, the city lord's eyes flashed with fear. Compared to the long-missing 9 Nether, Blood Eagle's power was evidently more intimidating. Some of the city lords, who were already wavering, exchanged glances in secret and bitterly smiled in their hearts. In truth, they didn't care who they pledged allegiance to, but siding with one would inevitably offend the other, and whether it was 9 Blood Palace or Bloodhawk Hall, neither was something they could face alone. In the sky, Tang Bing saw that many of the city lords, who had been intimidated by Mu Chen earlier, were now shaken again by Luo Mang. She clenched her silver teeth in frustration. Luo Mang, seeing this, let out a sigh of relief. He then coldly looked up at Mu Chen in the sky and said, "This new leader of 9 Nether Palace, we don't want to make things difficult. If you want us to submit to 9 Nether Palace, I think you should at least ask Lord Blood Eagle. If he agrees, we certainly won't say another word." Countless gazes turned toward Mu Chen. The situation had escalated to this point, and if the new leader of 9 Nether Palace really backed down now, it would likely become a laughingstock throughout the entire Great Luo Heavenly Domain. Under the scrutiny of these countless eyes, a faint smile appeared on Mu Chen's handsome face as he looked at Luo Mang and said, "So, does this mean that City Lord Luo Mang does not agree with 9 Nether Palace's proposal?" "I don't disagree. I just think you should ask Lord Blood Eagle," Luo Mang sneered. "In that case, there's nothing more to discuss," Mu Chen said with a helpless smile, though a cold, killing intent began to rapidly build up in his dark eyes. "It seems there's nothing to discuss." Luo Mang also stood up. He crossed his arms, his imposing figure exuding a heavy pressure. He stared coldly at Mu Chen, thinking to himself that this young brat really believed a few words could intimidate him. Had Luo Mang come this far just by talking? This kid, with his mere first-grade supreme power, dared to be so arrogant. Did he really think that after defeating Chao Feng, he could act without restraint? In the sky, Mu Chen smiled. A chilling, murderous intent radiated from his smile. In the next instant, he took a sudden step forward, and a dragon's roar reverberated through the air. Whoosh! As the dragon's roar echoed, his figure disappeared in an instant. At the same time Mu Chen vanished, Luo Mang's eyes narrowed, and he immediately retreated. However, just as he was retreating, the space behind him seemed to tear apart. A dragon-shaped shadow shot out, and a gust of palm wind, wrapped in purple flames, slammed heavily into Luo Mang's back. Bang! Luo Mang's face turned cold. Without any attempt to dodge, he swung his hand out, releasing a vast wave of spiritual energy that surged like a flood. Boom! The two palms collided, and the violent spiritual energy erupted in a frenzy. The ground where they stood immediately collapsed, cracks spreading rapidly, and the surrounding city lords hurriedly retreated, fearing they would be caught in the shockwave. SSS. As the two collided, Mu Chen's body erupted with lightning, clearly activating his Thunder God body to its fullest. His gaze grew ice-cold as he threw another powerful punch. "You think you're the only one who has trained your body." Luo Mang laughed angrily. He stomped his foot heavily, and the black snake patterns on his body began to squirm. The hideous snake mouth bit into his neck, and his body quickly darkened, turning as tough as black iron. The dark light flickered, and his fingers clenched tightly as he once again collided with Mu Chen's lightning-charged fist. Boom! The ground beneath them continued to crumble, but the area where they stood remained intact. Some of those who were familiar with Luo Mang's strength couldn't help but be shaken. After all, Luo Mang had become the lord of Demon Python City in the past through sheer power. His demonic python physique was not only incredibly strong, but also as tough as iron, and in terms of physical strength, he was considered one of the top among the second Great Supremes. However, today he was actually being blocked by a young man at the first Great Supreme level with a similarly formidable body. "You're quite something, kid. But if you want to take me down, you're still a little short." Luo Mang grinned savagely as his fists collided, causing the space to ripple. Yet, there was a hint of shock in his eyes, because he realized that, in this clash of physical power, he hadn't gained even the slightest upper hand. Mu Chen slowly raised his head, a cold smile curving at the corner of his lips. "Is that so? Then why don't you try this golden body power?" His eyes suddenly shone with golden light, and his originally brilliant silver skin quickly turned into a dazzling golden hue. From a distance, it looked as if he were forged from pure gold. Get lost! Mu Chen's fist, as golden as the sun itself, once again shot forward and collided directly with Luo Meng's fist. This time, a terrifying force erupted like a volcano. Boom! A deafening sound rang out, and everyone gasped as they saw Luo Meng's body being sent flying, leaving behind a deep crack in the ground that stretched for over 1,000 meters. Dust rose, the scene chaotic, and countless onlookers sucked in cold breaths. This young man had actually sent Luo Meng flying with a single punch. The terrifying crack stretched out from the dark plaza, resembling a giant serpent. Many who witnessed the scene felt their eyelids twitch uncontrollably. Some of the stronger individuals who knew Luo Meng, while looked on with grave expressions, for it was the first time they had seen Luo Meng, when competing in a test of physical strength against a young man who was only at the first grade supreme level, being overpowered and forced into a disadvantage. The new leader of the 9 Nether Palace was indeed no pushover. At the end of the crack, the black-clad youth stood in the same posture as when he had thrown his punch. His body shimmered with golden light, resembling a golden statue, radiating an unmatchable aura of strength. Many city lords couldn't help but change their expressions, clearly astonished that Mu Chen could, with just his physical strength, send Luo Meng flying with one punch. Under the watchful eyes of all, Mu Chen slowly withdrew his fist. His eyes, still gleaming with golden light, remained calm. He looked down at his fist, frowning slightly. For Luo Meng to have become the lord of Demon Python City and the leader of so many city lords, he undoubtedly had remarkable abilities. When they had clashed earlier, Mu Chen had realized for the first time that even after pushing his Thunder God body to its peak, he still couldn't suppress Luo Meng. Since Mu Chen had begun cultivating the Thunder God body, his powerful physique had given him an advantage in battles against opponents of the same level, and even those slightly stronger than him couldn't overwhelm him. However, the effects of the Thunder God body weren't as obvious as he had expected in this fight. Clearly, the body refinement divine art that Luo Meng cultivated was likely just as strong, if not stronger, than the Thunder God body. It seems it's time to train a stronger body refinement divine art, Mu Chen thought to himself. With his rapid rise in strength, his once invincible Thunder God body was beginning to lag behind. However, there was a silver lining. The greatest benefit Mu Chen gained from cultivating the Thunder God body wasn't just the physical strength it granted, but rather the deep tempering of his body through the thunderous energy. The foundation for Mu Chen's body was incredibly solid. No matter what body refinement divine art he cultivated in the future, he would achieve twice the result with half the effort. This was something that no other body refinement art could match, considering that even the North Sea Dragon Koan had once praised the Thunder God body. Boom. Just as that thought flashed through Mu Chen's mind, a shower of broken rocks suddenly shot out from the other side of the crack, followed by a violent surge of spiritual energy. Then, Luo Meng's figure reappeared. His upper clothes were torn, revealing a rock-like physique. A dark, massive serpent tattoo coiled around his body, exuding a chilling and eerie aura. Luo Meng's face was dark and grim as he fixed his gaze on Mu Chen, saying in a cold voice, "No wonder you're the leader of 9 Nether Palace." Mu Chen smiled faintly. However, Luo Meng's voice paused, and his gaze turned cold and sinister. "Today, if you think you can make us submit to the 9 Nether Palace, then I, the City Lord of Demon Python City, will be the first to refuse." His words caused an uproar, as it was clear that Mu Chen had indeed provoked Luo Meng. At this moment, Luo Meng no longer bothered with delaying words and directly rejected the offer. But in response to his words, Mu Chen's golden eyes remained calm, clearly unperturbed by this turn of events. He glanced at Luo Meng and said, "Then let me make it clear to you. You have been dismissed from your position as City Lord of Demon Python City. You no longer have the right to represent the city." Arrogant. Luo Meng laughed furiously, and murderous intent surged in his eyes. It seemed that he had already decided to kill Mu Chen. He had not expected that the latter's mind would be so ruthless. He not only wanted to take back Demon Python City, but also to strip him of his City Lord title. With a heavy stomp of his foot, The ground beneath him shattered, and a wild torrent of spiritual energy surged like a storm. A massive, shadowy figure of pitch-black hue slowly coalesced around his body. The colossal shadow, with a body entwined by a massive demonic python, emitted a sharp, piercing hiss that made the very spiritual energy of the world tremble. The shadowy figure, with its demonic python coils, towered in the air. Its cold, serpentine eyes locked onto Mu Chen as it hissed. "Let's see what qualifications you have to dismiss me today." "Is that the demon python Dharma body?" People around began to whisper in shock. It is said that Luo Mang once killed a severely wounded heavenly demon python, devoured its essence, and fused it into his body. That's how he cultivated this demon python Dharma body. Although this Dharma body isn't ranked among the 99 supreme Dharma bodies, its power is definitely formidable. Upon seeing the massive shadow entwined with the demon python, there was a commotion in the crowd. Some gasped in astonishment. After all, Luo Mang's cultivation method was extremely dangerous. Blending two vastly different bloodlines would naturally cause rejection, and if not done carefully, it could result in an explosion of the body. However, it seemed that Luo Mang had some good fortune, as he managed to endure it and cultivate the demon python Dharma body. "He's got some skills," Mu Chen said as he looked up at the massive figure, his expression carrying a hint of surprise. It seemed that Luo Mang was indeed capable, having successfully cultivated such a bizarre supreme Dharma body. "So you plan to regain your face with your supreme Dharma body?" Mu Chen smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in the smile. He clasped his palms together and slowly formed a strange hand seal. "Then let me show you. When it comes to physical strength, you don't stand a chance. And when it comes to supreme Dharma bodies, you stand no chance either." As the last word fell, a burst of dazzling golden light erupted, overwhelming everything in its path. A towering golden figure appeared, exuding an overwhelming pressure that filled the entire space. The golden figure stood tall, with a giant sun floating behind its head. Radiant golden light spread across its immense form, resembling a golden Buddha of unparalleled majesty. Boom, boom. As the supreme Dharma body materialized, the surrounding spiritual energy surged like a tidal wave, spilling out in all directions. The golden supreme Dharma body reflected in everyone's eyes, causing shock and awe to ripple through the crowd. Trying to act like a god, Luo Mang roared angrily. Though the oppressive aura from Mu Chen's supreme Dharma body had stunned him, he knew he could not retreat at this moment. If he did, turning the tide would be almost impossible. Demon Python Seal. Luo Mang dared not give Mu Chen any more time to display his overwhelming power. With a furious shout, dark rays of light shot into the sky, and the massive demonic python, coiled around him, darted forward. Its enormous body slithered like a seal of demonic python, directly pressing down on the golden supreme Dharma body. Mu Chen looked coldly at the approaching demon python seal, showing no sign of avoiding it. Instead, he stretched out his golden hand. The golden light erupted from his palm like a blazing sun. Bang! The golden palm pierced through the violent spiritual energy resistance, crushing the demonic python's massive body in one strike. The dazzling golden light swept through, suppressing the dark rays completely. Mu Chen's powerful voice reverberated across the heavens and earth. In the next instant, his palm struck fiercely downward, causing the demonic python to shriek as it plummeted. The golden giant hand, resembling a towering golden mountain, slammed heavily onto its massive body. Boom! The earth cracked open. The demonic python howled in agony as it was mercilessly driven into the ground, shattered into pieces. Hiss! Countless onlookers sucked in a cold breath. Who could have expected that Luo Mang's ferocious and seemingly unstoppable assault would be shattered by Mu Chen's palm? What kind of supreme Dharma body has this guy cultivated to be this strong? As the demonic python was crushed, Luo Mang's supreme Dharma body trembled violently, disbelief flooding his mind. Previously, when he had withstood a direct clash, he was at least able to hold his ground. But now, after summoning his supreme Dharma body, he was completely overwhelmed. Damn it! What kind of supreme Dharma body has this bastard cultivated? How can it be so powerful? Luo Meng's face darkened, and he couldn't help but roar in his heart. Now, I'll show you my qualifications. After shattering the demonic python's light seal, Mu Chen's golden giant eyes turned toward Luo Meng. His massive body shot into the sky, releasing waves of dazzling golden light, visible within a 100-mile radius. The frenzied spiritual energy surged violently through the air, like golden meteors falling. Luo Meng's expression darkened as he gazed at the spreading golden light in the sky, then abruptly turned to the city lords of Blood Vulture City and Blackrock City. He commanded sternly, "You two, attack with me." The city lords of Blood Vulture City and Blackrock City exchanged glances before gritting their teeth and, with a stomp, soared into the sky. Wham! However, just as they took to the skies, a strange wave of spiritual energy spread across the heavens. Numerous people's pupils contracted. 6 black lotuses descended from the sky, transforming into 2 massive beams of black light, like meteors, plummeting toward the 2 city lords. The terrifying spiritual energy exploded, and the 2 city lords, who had just attempted to act, were forced back to the ground. Boom! At that moment, a golden meteor also descended. The supreme Dharma body appeared, and in one golden hand, it descended like a golden sun, pressing down directly on Luo Meng. The terrifying pressure descended, causing the ground beneath to crack, and Luo Meng's expression changed dramatically as he felt the overwhelming power of Mu Chen's attack. "You think you can defeat me? It's not that easy," Luo Meng bellowed, his face twisted in rage. He raised both hands, unleashing his spiritual energy without holding back. Dark spiritual energy, like ink, darkened the sky, and the heavens were consumed by a fierce wind. His supreme Dharma body might not be as strong as Mu Chen's, but with his second-grade supreme peak strength, bolstered by his far superior spiritual energy, he wasn't afraid of Mu Chen's confrontation. If it comes to it, they would both suffer heavy losses. At worst, they would both be gravely wounded. Boom! The golden sun fell, and in the midst of countless shocked gazes, it collided fiercely with the dark spiritual energy, resembling a monstrous, sky-reaching demonic python. Everyone's eyes widened. This blow would likely decide the victor. The golden sun, shining with brilliant light, descended to suppress, and then, under the watchful eyes of all, it clashed violently with the towering, serpent-like spiritual energy. Boom! At the moment of collision, the shock waves spread like a flood, and the solid plaza beneath them shattered like waves, crackling and collapsing in layers. Fierce cracks continued to spread. The figures on the plaza hurriedly retreated, fearing that they might be caught in the terrifying impact. Python devouring heaven force. Within the demonic python's Dharma body, Luo Meng's face contorted in rage as his boundless spiritual energy surged from his body and into the demonic python's form. The dark, sky-reaching spiritual power emitted a hissing sound as it writhed, and within it, a pair of crimson giant eyes seemed to materialize. A fierce killing intent suddenly erupted. At ordinary times, when facing an opponent, Luo Meng relied on this advantage to defeat countless foes. However, this time, he failed to achieve the same result as before. Mu Chen's spiritual power not only integrated the undying fire, but now it also carried the enhancement of the great sun flame. The domineering nature of it was clearly far beyond the spiritual power of Luo Meng, who had absorbed the blood essence of the heavenly demon python and thus gained a vicious aura. Therefore, when the demonic python howled, the golden great sun that pressed down became even more dazzling. Waves of great sun flames swept forward, and with just a brief contact, the fierce, python-like spiritual power erupted in thick white mist, rapidly dissolving at an astonishing speed. Hiss! Within the demonic python-like spiritual power, a piercing shriek seemed to ring out. Luo Meng's expression changed dramatically at that moment, his eyes filled with disbelief. Clearly, he hadn't expected his prideful spiritual power to collapse to such an extent in this confrontation. Boom! However, Mu Chen did not give him much time to react. The great sun pressed down directly, smashing hard against the massive body of the demonic python Dharma body. Dong! The ground collapsed. The demonic python Dharma body was brutally driven into the earth, and the entire vast plaza sank. The statue of the demonic python was swept away and turned to dust. In the sky, the golden light dissipated. The golden giant shadow stepped through the sky, its posture looking down from above, like a god gazing indifferently upon ants, commanding and dignified. As the dust below gradually cleared, countless gazes were cast. Immediately, the sound of people gasping in astonishment filled the air. In the deep, collapsed pit, the demonic python Dharma body was now broken, its chaotic spiritual energy rippling out. Eventually, the Dharma body became transparent, disappearing entirely. As the demonic python Dharma body vanished, a disheveled figure fell out. Luo Meng stumbled onto the ruined ground, his face pale, a streak of blood visible at the corner of his mouth. Clearly, after Mu Chen shattered the demonic python Dharma body, Luo Meng had suffered a heavy blow. Luo Meng's demonic python Dharma body was destroyed. A loud exclamation rang through the air. This scene clearly shook everyone present. With Luo Meng's strength, he had already reached the peak of the second grade supreme, and with the special nature of the demonic python Dharma body, it was rare to find an opponent among the second grade supremes. But now, he had been defeated by a first grade supreme youth, his demonic python Dharma body shattered. No one could have expected such a turn of events. In the surrounding sky, the city lords watching this scene couldn't help but twitch their eyelids. This new leader of the Nine Nethers Palace was so fierce. Could it be that the Nine Nethers Palace was truly about to rise? The Blood Vulture City Lord and Black Rock City Lord, who had previously acted, also looked a little grim. They had been caught off guard by Mu Chen, which allowed him to focus his energy on dealing with Luo Meng. In the sky, the great sun indestructible body stood tall, its dazzling golden eyes coldly gazing at Luo Meng. A detached voice rang out. "It seems I still have the right to dismiss you." Luo Meng's face turned ashen, but then he gave a strange smile, looking towards the Blood Vulture City Lord, Black Rock City Lord, and others. He shouted, "Lord Blood Eagle has given his orders. If you think that by letting this boy succeed today, you'll have good days ahead, then keep watching." The Blood Vulture City Lord and Black Rock City Lord's expressions slightly changed. After a brief pause, they gritted their teeth and stood up. In the distance, among the city lords, some exchanged glances, their eyes flickering. Soon, four figures soared through the air. These four lords had always been closely aligned with the Bloodhawk Hall, and they were known as its pawns. They knew that if the Nine Nethers Palace managed to subdue these city lords, their own fates would be grim. Thus, they could not allow Mu Chen to continue unchecked. Although, after witnessing Mu Chen's strength, they no longer dared to underestimate him. The fact remained that they outnumbered him. With so many people working together, no matter how many methods Mu Chen had, he could never be their match. Though such an alliance would tarnish their reputations, in times like these, their reputations were the last thing on their minds. The six of them, including the Blood Vulture City Lord, hovered in midair, surrounding Mu Chen's great sun indestructible body, their overwhelming spiritual energy swirling around them, stirring the winds and causing the heavens to howl. At the sight of this, whispers of astonishment spread through the onlookers. "Haha, Mu Chen, no matter how powerful you are, do you really think you can fight 7 on your own today?" Luo Meng let out a chilling laugh. Also rising into the air, his cold and smug gaze locked on Mu Chen. "Despicable!" Tang Bing cried out angrily as she saw this scene. In the sky, the great sun indestructible body radiated golden light, and Mu Chen's figure appeared atop his Dharma body's head. He looked at Luo Meng and the 6 others, his brows slightly furrowed. With his current strength, it would take quite a bit of effort just to duel Luo Meng alone. After all, he was still only a first-grade supreme. If the other 6 city lords, all of whom were equally formidable, joined in, even he would find it difficult to stand his ground. "Mu Chen, I don't want to force you. If you leave now, I will let you go peacefully," Luo Meng said in a deep voice. Mu Chen heard this and smiled. He then turned to the other city lords, who had yet to make a move, and asked, "Anyone else?" Seeing how calm Mu Chen remained despite the situation, the city lords couldn't help but feel a bit of admiration. They glanced at each other, but no one spoke, and none stepped forward. Unlike Luo Meng and his allies, Although they had once allied with Bloodhawk Hall under duress, they had been oppressed by the Hall over the years. There was little goodwill left. However, because 9 Nether Palace had once been so weak, they had been hesitant to join. But now, it seemed 9 Nether Palace was truly showing signs of rising. Then it looks like it's just the 7 of you, Chen said, seemingly satisfied. After all, only a few of the city lords had truly been subdued by Bloodhawk Hall. The others were the stubborn ones. If he could remove them, the problem would be resolved smoothly. Luo Mang sneered, crossing his arms, his gaze icy as he stared at Chen. Since you refuse to take the opportunity to leave, don't blame me. Using numbers to overpower a few. Chen fixed his gaze on Luo Mang and grinned. You're not the only one who knows that trick. Luo Mang's expression shifted slightly, and he turned his attention to the 9 Nether Guards, who looked like a dark storm cloud. Their imposing formation made his pupils contract slightly. Just a rabble, Luo Mang sneered. The 9 Nether Guards were the least renowned among the many armies in the great Luo Heaven domain. They had always stayed hidden in 9 Nether Palace, indifferent to any provocation, which led many to underestimate their fighting strength. Is that so? Chen smiled faintly. His mind moved, and the great sun indestructible body roared into action, eventually hovering above the 9 Nether Guards. 9 Nether Guards. Chen's chilling voice echoed through the sky. Yes. A thunderous, synchronized response rang out, and the previously silent 9 Nether Guards suddenly opened their eyes wide in fury. A ripple of indescribable spiritual energy swept outward, tearing apart the clouds in the sky. Everyone was shocked, staring at the 9 Nether Guards, who had always kept a low profile in the great Luo Heaven domain. Now, they seemed like a lion awakening from slumber. 9 Nether Battle Will. As Chen's deep voice rang out, the 9 Nether Guards suddenly wielded black heavy halberds, and the halberds slammed into the ground with force. Boom. The sky seemed to thunder, an overwhelming battle intent shot upward. The battle will took on a tangible form, rapidly coalescing and intertwining until it seemed to turn into a sea of dark, battle-hardened intent surrounding the army. The sound of thunder rang out continuously, as if the army was roaring in anger. Condensing battle will. Luo Mang and the others' expressions changed drastically. The 9 Nether Guards could actually condense battle intent into a physical form, something only the most battle-hardened armies could achieve. Don't be afraid. Luo Mang's gaze flickered. Although the 9 Nether Guards can condense battle will, no one can control it. Chen only recently took charge of the 9 Nether Guards, so there's no way he can fuse with that kind of battle will, he said sharply. The other 6 city lords nodded in agreement. To control such battle will, one would need to merge with it. Chen had only recently arrived in the great Luo Heaven domain and had taken command of the 9 Nether Guards for a short time. There was no way he could command their battle intent. However, just as they finished speaking, Chen, seated atop the great sun indestructible body, gave them a faint smile. He then raised his long hand slightly. As Chen raised his hand, the expressions on the faces of Luo Mang and his 6 companions immediately stiffened. Deep in their eyes, a strong sense of shock and disbelief surged. Because they saw, as Chen lifted his hand, that vast ocean of battle will swept up like a storm. He really managed to control the battle will of the 9 Nether Guards. Now, with the battle will of the 9 Nether Guards under his command, Chen was essentially multiplying his strength by 1,000. This meant that the 7 of them, Luo Mang and his companions, would soon face an overwhelming assault from 1,000 warriors. Just the thought of this made Luo Mang's face go pale in an instant. The battle will gathered in the air above the 9 Nether Guards, and it took on a dark, eerie hue. As it churned, it seemed as though countless battle-hungry roars and howls could be heard, shaking the very heavens and earth. The entire Demon Python city was filled with countless gazes, all focused on this scene, their eyes reflecting awe and shock. They all knew just how stringent the requirements were to cultivate tangible battle will within an army. This required years of synchronization, with countless exchanges of spiritual energy to reach a delicate balance. Moreover, everyone in the army had to maintain the same mindset, undaunted and fearless. Only when this will was infused with spiritual energy could the individual battle wills merge together without obstruction, forming a terrifying force. An army with battle will could possess an overwhelming aura of intimidation. Furthermore, it wasn't enough just to condense this battle will. It also required someone capable of controlling it. This battle will was akin to a destructive force, and only a master could wield it to launch an offensive. To control the battle will of an army, the leader at its core had to resonate with it, unlocking its power. However, achieving this resonance required long-term training and tacit understanding with the army. What was most crucial, though, was that once the controller summoned this battle will, it would rush into their body. If their mind wasn't firm enough, they would quickly be overwhelmed by the battle will. One mistake could even lead to a backlash, with disastrous consequences. Because of the numerous restrictions involved in controlling battle will, when the crowd witnessed the battle will rise with Mu Chen's raised hand, surging up like a black ocean, they couldn't help but show their astonishment. Mu Chen had only been in the Great Luo Heaven domain for 2 to 3 months, and his control over the 9 Nether Guards battle will had been even shorter. No one could have expected that, in such a short time, he could synchronize so perfectly with the 9 Nether Guards battle will. Luo Mang and his companions also looked at this scene with ashen faces. They knew that if Mu Chen could really control the 9 Nether battle will, they would have no hope of victory. In their eyes, filled with despair, Mu Chen remained seated quietly on the top of the great sun indestructible body, his black eyes calmly watching them. Within them, a faint flicker of scorching heat stirred. The overwhelming battle will surged into Mu Chen's body as he controlled it. But his years of hard training had given him an unyielding will, like that of a rock. Though the battle will from 1,000 soldiers was vast and powerful, attempting to turn it against him was impossible. The surging battle will roared within Mu Chen's body like a flood, and in his eyes, a fiery battle intent surged. He looked at Luo Mang and the others, slowly raising his hand before flicking it down. His finger descended slowly, as though carrying the weight of a mountain. But just as it landed, the space before him cracked like shattered glass, with visible cracks rapidly extending outward. Roar! The battle will ocean below erupted in a roar, and the dark battle will shot up into the sky, transforming into a massive black beam of light that shot forward. This beam of light, which combined the 9 Nether Guards battle will and spiritual energy with Mu Chen's control, possessed enough power that even a 3rd grade supreme would have to avoid its edge. Boom! Luo Mang and his 6 companions watched as the battle will beam shot toward them, their faces changing drastically. They immediately cried out, unleashing their spiritual energy without holding back. The light curtain descended, resembling the gate of life and death, separating existence from oblivion. Boom! Yet the beam of battle intent did not falter in the slightest. It surged violently forward, crashing into the countless spiritual light curtains standing tall between heaven and earth under the watchful gazes of many. Bang! 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 The beam of light struck, and the terrifying power it unleashed tore through the 7 light curtains almost instantaneously. The overwhelming force, like a tornado, left everyone dumbfounded. The combined defense of the 7 city lords was as fragile as paper. Poof! In an instant, the 7 light curtains shattered, and the faces of Luo Mang and his companions flushed with redness. A mouthful of blood erupted from them, and their bodies were violently thrown backward, their spiritual energy wildly fluctuating. Boom! The 7 of them staggered back in disarray, their eyes filled with growing terror as they saw the beam of battle intent, after tearing through the light curtains, still relentless, charging directly toward them. Such an attack, if it struck, would surely leave them either dead or severely wounded. This Mu Chen had no intention of holding back. A chill surged within Luo Mang and his companions. The new leader of the 9 Nether Palace, Tang Rou, was ruthless, offering them no chance of surrender. This was clearly a lesson meant to intimidate others. Whoosh! The beam of battle intent shot forward and appeared before the 7 in the blink of an eye. The cracked spatial lines around it made the 7's eyes widen in intense fear. Under such immense pressure, they were unable to even speak the words of surrender. At this moment, a wave of astonishment rippled through the atmosphere, and the many city lords watching from behind could not help but tremble. This new leader of the 9 Nether Palace was going to kill to establish their authority. Done for. In the desperate gaze of Luo Mang and the others, the light beam descended. However, just as they thought their doom was sealed, a sharp eagle cry suddenly echoed through the air. Cree. In the instant the eagle's cry rang out, a blood-red light pierced through space, crashing violently into the black battle-intent beam with astonishing speed. Boom. The two terrifying forces collided, and a violent spiritual energy storm erupted. Luo Mang and his companions were instantly swept up by the shockwave, their bodies flying like cannonballs, leaving deep gashes across the wide streets of the city. Mu Chen, observing the rampant spiritual energy storm, narrowed his eyes slightly, then turned his head to look towards the courtyard, where the sky suddenly turned blood-red. The blood-red hue rapidly approached, and in the blink of an eye, it appeared above the city. As the bloodlight faded, a blood-red army appeared, stepping on a sea of blood clouds. They were clad in blood-red armor and wielded blood spears, exuding a murderous aura that shot into the sky. Above this blood-red army, a battle intent had also condensed into blood clouds, and within them, a figure stood with hands clasped behind his back. That's the Blood Eagle Guard of the Bloodhawk Hall, and one of the 4 commanders, Wu Tian. The Bloodhawk Hall's forces have finally appeared. Now things are getting interesting. The Blood Eagle Guard is even being deployed. As the countless eyes in the city witnessed the appearance of the blood-red army, gasps of surprise filled the air. Many looked on with strange expressions, realizing that the 9 Nether Palace and the Bloodhawk Hall had truly torn their alliance apart. Now even their armies were being brought into play. Tang Bing, seeing the Blood Eagle Guard appear, her delicate face slightly changed. She moved and appeared by Mu Chen's side, whispering, "It's Wu Tian." Mu Chen nodded and looked up at the figure above the blood-red army, smiling slightly. "You finally couldn't sit still." Wu Tian, with a cold expression, fixed his gaze on Mu Chen. Their preparations in Demon Python City were meant to make Mu Chen lose face. But no one expected that not only did Mu Chen maintain his dignity, but he had also slapped the face of the Bloodhawk Hall in front of everyone. If they didn't show up now, they might lose all credibility. Mu Chen, take your people from the 9 Nether Palace and get out of Demon Python City. This place belongs to the Bloodhawk Hall, and you are not welcome here, Wu Tian said in a frosty tone. Mu Chen, hearing this, smiled faintly and replied, "The positions of the 7 city lords have been revoked, and from now on, these cities will all be under the control of my 9 Nether Palace. If the Bloodhawk Hall continues to interfere, don't blame us for showing no mercy." Wu Tian's face twitched, and he sneered, "What big words. You think you can take these cities? Let's see if you have the ability today." Accompanied by Wu Tian's sharp shout, the army, resembling a blood-red cloud, immediately erupted into synchronized roars. A fierce killing aura surged into the sky, and the overwhelming battle will spread across the land, carrying with it the scent of blood. The Blood Eagle Guard was a key fighting force of the Bloodhawk Hall, numbering around 5,000. This was several times stronger than the 9 Nether's Guard, although it was clear that not all of them had followed Wu Tian here. Even so, their number still exceeded that of the 9 Nether's Guard by at least 1,000. Within the city, countless eyes turned toward the imposing Blood Eagle Guard, their expressions shifting uncontrollably. It was said that during the expansion of the Bloodhawk Hall's domain, they had committed their fair share of city massacres. As a result, the Blood Eagle Guard had earned a notorious reputation in the Great Luo Heaven domain, far surpassing the fame of the 9 Nether's Guard. Wu Tian stood atop the swirling blood clouds, his gaze cold and venomous, locked onto Mu Chen. His chilling voice echoed throughout the city. "I'll give you 10 breaths of time to get out of Demon Python City. Otherwise, everything your 9 Nether's Palace has will be destroyed here today." Mu Chen gazed at Wu Tian's cold, venomous eyes, then gave a slight smile. In his black pupils, a chill flickered, and his calm voice slowly spread amidst the sea of blood.